Hello there, my name is Glenn Waters. I'm a part-time predator controller, and I'm going to be your host for running a few days on my winter mink line. I've just checked this set here. It's a drain set on the canal, and I've just picked up a dog mink, a young dog mink here. Here we have a good location here for mink. There's water coming over a pipe here, running through a small sandbank to create a small water channel. I picked up this old board line in the stream, and I roofed the channel here, and gradually with the high water, the silt's built up on top here, and it's made an excellent location for trapping the mink. I've had one or two good large mink out of this drain set here. The trap I'm using here is a Springer. It's a 6-inch trap. We have 3 different types of trap that I use. The Springer 6-inch, the Fen 6-inch, and the Northwood Rat Trap 6-inch trap. And they're basically all the same design and idea. Here I have a backup set along the bank here, just in case any mink gets caught here and you get any more running up the bank, because the mink come along here and they run along the bank. And the mink being a member of the Mustelidae family, the weasel family in other words, and they like to keep running along the banks. Although they go into the water for their food, or to escape danger, or for to go around any obstruction that's in their way. Always remember this, they like to run the banks. And this backup set, the mink come up here, had them in this trap here. We've also had them caught in this backup set on the high bank here. And you must remember, with the high rainfall we have in this country, your water level in these small streams rises quickly. When the water rises, this set's out of commission. And this is where the backup set comes into its peak here. This here is another ideal location. So you see this large stone here in the water, and you have a vertical bank and a flat bank. And when the mink running along, it's an ideal snare set here for setting a snare for trapping these mink. There's many good locations. While we're going up this stream, I'll point 1 or 2 good locations out to you to give you an idea of what to look for and where to set traps. Here we also have a pipe here, a broken pipe that could be made into a good location. all we have to do is put a cover over the back end of the pipe, some plots them, and when the water runs out of that pipe, it will come up in the road, it runs down, it comes out here, it creates a little channel. You can block off the sides here, place a trap in the front, you lead your drowning wire out in the stream. There's a fair depth here, and when you're trapping the mink in these spent traps, and they're backing out into the cold winter water, and they drown and they're out of sight, and it's very humane. They're dead in the matter of seconds. Here we have another location here where we have a sluice coming down here from the field. What I've done here, I've roofed over this sluice here, and I've roofed over the top piece, so when the water's low I've set two traps. I'll set one in here and one up here. When the rain comes, it puts this bottom trap out of commission. Still got the top trap working, because the mink love to investigate these tunnels into these sluices and anywhere there's running water and drain. Here we have a good snare set on this fallen tree across the stream. These locations are ideal for travelling mink. They come up and run along these trees, and this is where I snare them along here at this end. They'll drop off and then they'll hang it. It's very quick and humane. This morning I had a stoat running along the top of this tree, and he went through the snare loop. When I set a snare loop, I set it between 4 and 5 inches. I'm setting for dog mink. Obviously, a stoat being lithe and smaller, more agile, went through the loop and it slightly sprung it, so I was just setting the snare up there. This style of trapping is based on the American longline system. The American longliners run 300 and 400 traps over a winter period. They travel as many miles, 200, 300, 400 miles. And the theory of the American longline system is, if a man has 200 traps and he sets 2 traps on 100 streams over a distance in his county or state, and he takes 1 mink from each of these streams, he has 100 mink over the winter. Now run this short line round about this area where I stay here in East Central Scotland. It's only a line, it covers basically about 20 miles, covers maybe 4 or 5 different streams. This style of trapping, you set your traps in a short area near the road, so you don't have to do much walking. And it's a very effective method of picking up a large numbers of mink. And in this style of trapping, I'll show you different locations, snares, how to set snares, different techniques, snaring logs, snaring mink going along, running along the banks, going through brush piles and roots, and many different styles of trapping. have a snare set here. These snares are deadly, especially along these vertical edges to this wall. I've had 2 or 3 mink here, and these dog mink are very powerful, and they can pull these bricks right down into the stream here, and this is where I collect them, down in the water here, and they're drowned. They're very strong animals, they've got powerful necks. You also could make a set here, just where the flat bank here meets the vertical edge and tapers off into the water, because the mink run right along the flat bank, right to the edge before they leave when they go into the actual water itself. But with the snow and that, it's going to put the height of the water up. Therefore, a trapping here will go out of commission within a day or two. And I take the mink further up here, as I've described and showed you the snare set along the vertical wall. It's quite a good location here for catching these mink as they run along the bank. you can see, we've just caught a squirrel in this mink snare. And the only problem is with the squirrels, they eat the forked stick that we use for putting over the top of the logs here. Why it's cut like this is to guide the mink through here, and we leave the top part here protruding to the fork. That's to stop the mink of that attempt to jumping over the top of it. It deters them from jumping over the top, so that they must go through. This is a very effective type of set, this. American longliners use this for snaring bobcats in trees. It can also be used on a bigger scale for snaring foxes, or practically any animal that runs the trees or that. Here I've just finished putting a fish head into this drain set here. These fish heads are ideal. These sea fish heads, get a good smell of them for attracting the mink. I've also took a magpie here and scattered the feathers in the front of the drain set. These feathers are good eye attractors for the mink as they run along the bank. And they go in and investigate. And they look in and they can see the fish head, and they go right in and into the walk right over the trap while we're concentrating on taking the bait. I don't put any blood or anything or rub any lure or that on the trap itself. I don't want the mink to stop and start sniffing about, because I set these traps light, because he may spring the trap and they're very fast and he moves back and I miss him. I want him concentrating on the bait, and he sees the fish head in there and he goes right in and he steps on the trap. Well, his concentration's on looking in and seeing the head, and the head is a silver colour and an eye attractor in itself. It's a very good bait for catching the mink here. And why I lifted the trap out of this drain, when you set traps in these drains, always lift them out when you're checking them every day, and look under the pan, just in case you get small pebbles or any debris floating down with the running water in these drains, maybe coming under the plate. Therefore it will stop your plate from going down and your trap from springing. If you don't do this, it's only laziness, and this is how you become a good effective trapper. With small details like this, it makes you all the better. And I've learned this from previous experience in doing this and not checking them in the earlier years when I started trapping, and go down and the plate was dropped and there was a small pebble or a stick or something lodged under the pan, and the bait was gone and there were no mink. So therefore just take a wee bit of time and remember these small details. Help you become a better trapper and that in the future. Different types of ways, methods for snaring mink. first method here, this is a good method. It's used for snare mink running along logs and trees. You just hammer 2 staples, one on either side of the log, and insert the fork stick here. The top part of the fork here is left on, because it stops the mink jumping over the top here. It deters them from jumping, so that they have to go through between the forks and into the loop. You can either make a small incision with your knife, or you can use a drawing pin, as you can see here. Your snare can be secured with a piece of wire onto the staple at the side of the log. So when your animal's caught, he drops off and he expires within a minute or so. Here, the second individual set here. This is a set, it's just a fork stick. And you have a higher arm and a lower arm. And as you can see, your snare set in between them here. The piece of wire here just acts as a poke stick for to make the mink jump through the loop. And your snare can be attached to a brick. And all you have to do is take your fork and stick it into the ground. And here you have the set. It's so simple to make, and the shorter arm just acts as a guide to keep the snare in line here and make the mink go through the space between the forks. The third set here is just a simple set pin or peeler, whatever you want to call it, just inserted into the ground in a wire loop, and you can just stick a poke stick in underneath the snare loop and wire it to a brick. The next set here with a mink snare attached to a thin piece of wire, and this is very effective. This can actually be used in branches of trees. You can also snare squirrels with this method, and just attach the snare to a brick or onto a thin branch. It can also be used for snaring in water, going along the parapets of bridges. You can tie it around a piece of iron pipe, you sit it in parallel along to the bridge wall, and then hang the snare loop over and catch the mink as they run along the edge of the parapet of the bridge. This piece of wire here can be used effectively exactly the same as this fork stick here. You take the piece of wire and you bend it into this shape, the seam here, and staple it onto the log. And set your snare on the wire, and then when they're caught they just drop off. This same piece of wire here is a very effective set for snaring rabbits. You just got a length of wire 3 feet long, bend it as shown, push it over the run with your snare attached, and the rabbits come along and run through. And also mink, I've snared many mink with this method. And you would think that you could pull it out of the ground, well they can't. It's so simple for you to lean across and pull it out, but when they're caught, they're pulling from the side and you just wrap round about the actual wire standard itself. It's a very simple and effective method. This method was shown to me by Alec Chisholm, an old gamekeeper up at Aberfeldy. He showed me it many years ago for snaring hares on the moor. We use this method because on the hills up in Scotland, as you know, there's many sheep grazing the moors. So therefore when it was set like this, the sheep came down and they stepped over it. And this is a very effective set, and Alec used this and he showed me this a number of years back. These sets are very simple and easily constructed. And it's the simplest of sets that takes the wariest of predators. They're nothing fancy, awkward or hard, but the set are very simple and easy to use. And as you can see here, we've got 5 different types of sets for using snares. I can snare as many mink in these snares and these sets as I can take with traps. They're very effective, and it's only practice in using the snares. These loops aren't the actual size for taking the mink. They're just used here for a demonstration so that you can see how to set them. The actual snare itself, when you're setting these snares for mink, when you're snaring for dog mink, set the loop so that the bottom of the loop is 3.5 inches high from the ground with a poke stick, because some of these big mink that runs these rivers are quite large and they've got a 3-inch leg. And all you have to do is just set a wee poke stick under here, and he makes the mink lift his head and he's through and he's caught. This type of wire here I'm using is American aircraft cable. It's limp and it runs very fast and effective. The little eyes that I use, some of them I make them out of brass picture hooks. And these brass picture hooks can be acquired at the local market. You can buy 100 of them for a few pounds. They're very cheap. You just cut the bend off them. There's 2 holes already drilled in them, and then you just turn them up with your pliers and drill one single hole through them, and they're very effective. And they're ideal for catching the mink. They're small and they're neat, and they work very well in any condition. Another thing about this wire set here is this wire set here can be used for snaring mink and running water. All you have to do is get a piece of pipe, or wire it around the pipe or a brick, stick it into the water, and you've got your snare loop attached with a piece of electrical tape, something simple. And you may think that the running water would wash the snare loop back, but here's a simple trick to stop the snare being washed back with the running water. All you have to do is take a few pieces of wire and bend them round like that. The snare is either wired onto a brick, something solid, and it sits along the wall or parapet of a bridge, or in a marsh or any area like that where you've got maybe a running stream and you've got a mink swimming through, and you can have this wire set used into the water, and you hang your snare loop in here. And when they're running water, your snare loop's on the top side here, and it just sits against these wire arms here. And if the mink's coming down water, swimming, riding the current coming down, he's into the snare, and when he's coming up the way, it's very simple because these arms in no way interfere with the snare loop. And it's a very simple and effective method. And snares are my speciality. Here we have the basic essentials for trapping mink. First of all, start off with a spring trap here. This spring trap is a Northwood 6-inch rat trap. It's exactly the same type of trap as the pen and the springer. The only problem with this trap is the 4 corners are missing off the plate. These 6-inch traps have got a good sized kill area and strong springs, and they're ideal for springing up through the cold winter water for catching the mink. The only problem, they have a very poor stepping area in comparison to the size of the kill area of the trap. You've got a 2-inch space here from the end of the pan and a loose jaw, where you must insert a small stick for to guide the mink over the pan. Otherwise you could miss a mink stepping in here and miss him if you didn't guide him over the pan. I take these traps when they're new from the factory. I set them all so that the pan sits level. I tighten them up so there's no side play on the pan, and they drop very easily once the pressure's been inserted on them by the mink. After I boil these traps up to take the factory grease off them, I boil them in for about 20 minutes to half an hour, bring them to a boil and then let them simmer away, and I put some liquid soap in them, and this takes the grease off the new traps. After that, I pour the water out off the top. I don't lift the traps up through the scum on the top of the water. Then after the traps are dried, I go to the car accessory shop and I buy some large cans of black matte paint and I spray these traps. This keeps your traps good, and I've had these traps for a number of years using them. It keeps them good, it stops them from rusting when they're sitting in the cold winter water for 2 or 3 months at a time. I also grease these traps. What I do is I go to the abattoir, I get 10 pounds of suet and it's minced. I melt it down, then I strain it so I'm left with the clear grease. And then I drop my traps into this grease, I leave them for a minute or so, pull them out and then let them drip dry. And it's very effective. It makes the traps fast and springing because we're trapping mink, and mink are very quick and agile animals. Therefore you need a trap that springs fast to catch them. I wax these traps for the simple fact because the design of these traps, you've got the metal jaws and it's metal to metal, and if you don't grease them they don't seem to spring very fast in the water once they've been lying for a while or if they're set in any acidic soils and that. And you can hear the grinding of the metal when you open the trap jaws, and I grease them and it makes a really good difference to the trap, and it makes them very fast and efficient. Now here's the trap chain here. I also add an extra swivel to them, and I just run a drowning wire onto the trap. As you can see here, the end of the trap, the end of the wire here, there's a small crimp inserted on the end. There's a double crimp here, and you just let this, the end of the wires look through and then crimp. The reason for this is so that the loop on the end of the wire opens. And I've took this brick that I've lifted out the stream, and I've took my axe and I've chipped the corners. Then you insert your drowning wire over the brick here, and you just run this crimp up and it tightens up, and then when you want to release it you just pull it and take it off. It's a very simple method of setting traps in the water and using them in a brick and a drowning wire. Here we have an axe. It's handy when you're digging out back holes and you come to a root that's a problem and you might not be able to cut it with your spade, so you just cut it with the axe. And other little things, the problems that occur in the trap line, the axe is very handy. Also the rubber gloves for in the cold water in the winter. Here is a pair of cutters. This is a pair of Knife-X wire cutters. They're made in Germany and they're very effective and they're really good cutters. I wouldn't be without them on the line. Here we have just a pocket knife. A good knife which is essential on the line. When you're snaring you must cut pegs and other things and skinning. You may be wondering what the squeezy bottle is. No, it's not fairy liquid. The bottle is full of fish oil with mink glands mixed. It's for scooting into the traps in the wet weather. Used as an attractor for drawing the mink in. This here is a small roll of electrical tape that comes in handy for taping snares and various other things that occur in the line. Here we have another jar of lure. This lure is a thicker type lure. It's a very minky smell. The musk of the glands of the anal region of the mink is mixed in through it. And it's a good attractor, especially in wet weather, cold weather. And it holds better and it doesn't wash off very quick. Here we have a small trowel just for digging into the drains or when you're bedding your trap. It's a very handy little tool and light and effective. And this is a grand wee spade here. Very effective for digging out your bank holes and working the bank and prizing stones out. And it's an essential tool that I wouldn't do without. And it also acts as a good wading stick when you're walking about in the water. Here we have drawn pins, and as I described in one of the snare sets, they're handy for pushing into the wood or anywhere that you've got a problem area where you must set a snare. And these are handy little items for pushing into boards that's covering culverts with maybe a corner broken off where a mink's squeezing through. These are just a couple of magpies. Anybody that does a lot of shooting these pests, they can keep them for bait. They're ideal bait, and they're black and white. And when you push a stick through them and stick them in the back of the tunnels, they're very visible for the mink when he looks in to see. And you also can take a handful of feathers and use them as an eye attractor and fling them into the front of the drains for to catch the mink's eye as they're passing, running along the bank. Rabbit tails are very effective. You can also put lure in them and just hang them on a piece of wire and stick them in the back of the tunnel. And they also are very effective for an eye attractor. And earlier, as you've seen in one of the sets, we used the fish head. The mink love the fish heads. They're very good, and all you have to do is go to the local fish shop and ask for some fish heads, and they're only too willing to give you them. And here we have a bag. An old bag, and it holds a lot of stuff, and it's an ideal bag, and it suits me fine. And on the whole, all the tools in the mink line, just straightforward and simple, nothing fancy, and they're easy carried, and basically that's it. And one other item here before I almost forgot here is the waders. These are very essential for wading in the streams and the burns, and I wouldn't be without them. And they're ideal for wading in the cold winter water. And I always get a size bigger than what I use, so I can put 2 pairs of socks on for going into the cold winter water. A snare set here for a mink. I've previously demonstrated this set using a wire loop. All you do is get your wire loop 3 feet long, push it into the bank, wire your snare on as shown. Here I have a couple of jump sticks, one across the front of the snare and one across the back of the snare. Take a dog mink. He measures 5 inches from his nose to his chest, and a mink when he's running along the bank has a hop and run sort of movement. So therefore, when you're snaring them out in the open and you put these small jump sticks across the run in front of the snare loop, this breaks his stride. So when the mink comes up the bank, he jumps the snare loop, and the distance between the jump stick and the loop is 4 inches. So therefore, when he jumps the jump stick here, his head hits the loop and the eye runs down on top of him and catches him. You must do this because if you didn't make him jump or break his stride, or you didn't use a poke stick, you could miss him. And when the mink's caught, he's caught in the snare and he pulls the snare. There's no way that he gets away from this method. It's so simple, you would believe that you could just pull this piece of wire out the ground, but you can't. All you have to do is put the wire through the swivel here. It's just a large fishing swivel attached on the end of the snare, and you just push that through the wire before putting it in the ground. And when the mink's caught, he runs round about and he pulls from the side and he just wraps himself around the piece of wire here. It's a very effective method, this, and so simple. This was the set that old Alec Chisholm showed me when he was snaring the rabbits and the hares up in the Highlands, and when he had the sheep walking about, and it saved them being caught by the leg, and they just stepped over the wire loop. And it's very effective also for snaring mink, as you can see here. This morning here we have a sparrow hawk. He's killed a small bird here this morning. As you can see, he's plucked all the feathers from it. There's quite a few sparrowhawks fly around here. You see them at times going down the river bank here taking the birds. Traps away, there's a light there. Bitch here this morning. This trap here, it's a fen trap, it's a Mark IV. This old concrete lintel was washed down in a flood. It was lying here, so I just used it to the advantage of making a tunnel with it. I just turned it over, flung some flotsam on the top of it. It's quite a good location here. I've got a backup set in here. This part of the bank here, where it narrows down between the tree and the river bank. Here we have a set here, parallel to the bank, to the side of the stream. When the water level rises, and this set here is out of commission, I still have this set working while the mink are running along the bank here. And also, we've got a small peninsula here with stones protruding, which is a very good location here. Always look for parts of the bank where it's narrowed down and you're forcing the mink through, channeling them through areas like this. I use this trap here, this Mark IV, because it's the only size of trap that would fit in here. And they're still pretty effective, especially when you're using them on a drowning wire, because they haven't far to pull the trap into the deep pool. There's also, we'll have an otter comes up here. I had to stop using bait in these tunnels here. This otter was coming up, and he comes up and he springs these traps and he just steals the bait, and he's not trap shy, believe me. He comes up every day and he takes them. So I had to stop using bait in them. I just use a touchy lure or maybe an eye attractor with some feathers. And this same otter, it travels down the bank here and interferes with the traps further down. But it's nice to see them on the bank. The water appears to be getting a bit cleaner when you're starting to get the otters on it. And as you can see, it's ideal conditions here, nice pools and that. There are plenty of eels in here for them to eat. Here we have a snare set here. Mink goes swimming along the edge of the wall of the bridge here. It's nothing fancy, it's just plain and simple. Piece of galvanised wire wrapped round an old piece of scrap iron here. And as you can see, the snare is attached here, the swivel. And it's also just a piece of black tape wound round galvanised wire set here for the mink to catch the mink swimming along the wall of the bridge here. And there's just a small lead here just to guide them through the loop. The snare loop's actually only 1 inch under the depth of the water because mink are quite buoyant when they're swimming. On the other side here you have another snare set. Another old piece of scrap iron. This way a galvanised fencing wire, not the high tensile wire, the softer type wire, just wired onto the the piece of scrap, the snare loop, is taped on the top here, and he's just hanging along the bridge wall. You have a small stick here just to keep the mink swimming in line. Here we have a branch, and you may wonder why I flung this branch in the water. Well, this branch, the purpose of the branch lying in the water is when the mink's snared, gets caught in the snare and he pulls out into the water. When you have a branch, he tangles himself up round about it and drowns quickly. That's the idea of flinging a branch in along these walls of the bridges while you're snared. And it tangles the mink up, and they're hard to see, keeps them down under the water. And they're very simple and effective. And economics must be taken into trap also, just like any other business. Traps cost quite a few pounds, snares cost quite a few pence, and there's a vast difference. And you must also take the theft factor into consideration. And here, anybody looking over the wall of the bridge, they wouldn't see anything. You have the snares just under the bridge here. They catch the mink as they come along the bank, and then they leave here at the wing of the bridge, and they swim along the edges. You normally always set two sides of a bridge, but on these small rivers, mink have a habit of running one bank for quite a distance, and then they cross over, and this bank here is the one that they use. Very seldom use that bank. This is the bank here that they use. Large rivers, the majority of mink always run the one side, and on these small streams, the mink always run one bank for a certain distance, and then they cross over, and they'll run another part of the bank and then cross back and forward on these smaller sized streams. And you only learn this through experience and going along the edges and looking. Here we have a forked stick, this set with a small poke stick wired on here, and the mink, as they come along the bank and up through here, and they can get caught in the snare here before they reach the bridge, or maybe if there's a couple of mink running, you'll catch the two of them. And it's very simple. It's just wired onto a brick here, and when the mink's caught in the snare, he just pulls out and he takes off into the water, and this is where you find them, drowned. And these snare sets are very simple and effective, and they're also cost effective, and they're very light, and you can carry 100 of them with ease in your pocket. There's a vast difference between carrying those and 100 traps. And they're very simple and effective. They're nothing fancy, but believe me, they work, because I use them to good effect. Here we have a springer trap set here in a small feeder stream. These are deadly locations for mink. Running these rivers, investigating these small feeder streams and that, especially when you make a tunnel over the top of them, they become very effective. When you're making this type of tunnel over these feeder streams for catching mink on the water, the banks of the streams, don't make the tunnel level with the bank of the actual stream. Make it 3 feet back, because mink tend to run the bank, and if you make them too far to the front, you're liable to miss them. You're better making the actual tunnel about 3 feet back from the actual bank onto the stream here. So the mink are running the bank and then you're going to investigate. This is a tunnel set on the higher bank. In the previous tunnel we've just had a look at here, and the feeder stream is out of action when you get heavy rain. This one is a backup set here for taking the mink running along the bank, swimming along the wall of the bridge. The actual tunnel itself is made of half a 25 litre drum. It's just cut in two. It's very light and effective, and they make ideal tunnels. All you have to do is take a handful of dirt and rub it on the inside of the white plastic in the tunnel here, just to dull it down, and then dig a small channel, put the half of the plastic drum in, and then cover it with flotsam and leaves and that. And they become very effective, and you can carry quite a number of these at any one time. They're very light and effective. This is an ideal location here for mink. Snare them running over this log, and you come up to investigate these piles of flotsam and driftwood here. The previous sets that you've just seen have gang set this area here at the bridge for to catch any transient mink that's coming up running the bank of the river. Therefore, it saves me setting any snares or anything here in the log, because they catch them all here in these traps at the edge of the bridge. Here we have a mink snare set under the roots of this tree here. The snares become very effective once the water level rises with the rain and the mink are hunting high banks. The snares become very effective in these conditions. This is another good location here for mink passing between the bank of the river and this tree. And I've snared quite a number of mink. As you can see, there's the snare set here for to catch them as they pass up along the river bank here. This is another high bank set here with a trap wired onto a drowning wire. So when the mink goes in for the bait, he gets caught in the trap and he backs out and he drops into the water and he's drowned and out of sight quickly. Here we have a mink snare, and we catch any mink running over these logs. The set the height of the snare is 3.5 inches high, with about a 45-inch loop. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm cutting a poke stick, sharp to each end. You put your knife into the top of the log here, you make a small incision, and then you put your poke stick underneath. This is so that when the mink is coming along the log, and the stick here makes the mink raise his head and he jumps through into the loop, and then he's caught. Then once he's caught, he drops off and he's hanging from the snare of the log. So these logs are very effective for catching mink running across. Here we have another snare here, and the mink running along the bank. There's a snare and there's a poke stick, but to make him lift his head, but to jump through here into the snare. The snare there. These snares are made of 1/16 American aircraft cable. And they're very strong. They have to be for to catch some of these heavy dog mink. Some of them weigh over 4 pounds in weight that run this water. This is another field drain set here. Traps wire onto a drowning wire here. It's a very effective set this. I've had quite a number of mink here over the years. They get caught here, come out and they drown in this pool. It's a very good location for the mink in this burnder. Snare set here, but I catch the mink coming up the river bank and under the space here in the log. I just made this hole under the log with my foot, just stick the hole under it and set the snare in. These locations under the river bank are quite effective for catching the mink. Here we have a squirrel. It was caught in this snare set yesterday, so I have to replace the snare. These squirrels are the bane of my life, especially in wooded areas, because they get caught nearly every other day in the mink snare. Mink snare here on the log. I took my knife and made a small hole here in the top of the log and inserted a small piece of wire to act as a poke stick for the mink running along the log jumping. And mink, like the fox, will take the easiest route and they come along and up the bank and run along this log. And one or two over here and they hunt these piles of flotsam. Here is another squirrel. He was caught in this snare the other day, and as I say, they're quite a nuisance, as the squirrels are very numerous in this area. There's the snare on there. Of a snare set here, and as you can see, the banking's been very well dug up. I've had a number of mink here. I got a large dog mink here the other day. As you can see the damage that they do when they're jumping up and down. They're very powerful beasts, and you have to have a strong snare for to catch them. And these areas and overhanging bank and roots are very effective locations for catching the mink while running the river bank. Here we have another snare set here for the mink coming along the bank, hunting up here in amongst the flotsam. There's another snare at the back here we've just seen previous to this. And I've had one or two mink in this and a number of squirrels in this snare set here. When you're setting the snare at this angle, for where you've got the bank is angled here, you must tilt your snare same angle as the mink, and there's a poke stick here to make the mink raise his head and to jump into the loop. Here we have a bank hole set here. I dug this set out the other week there, and I just put a bait in there to see if there was any mink working it. And here we have the tracks of a dog otter who comes up here and has been investigating at the bank hole. I've seen this otter once or twice on this stretch of water here, and he's quite a large otter. So there's hints of eels and the fish here in the burn. Here we have a tree that's fell over the river here, and as you can see the badgers are running over this tree here. It's well padded, you can see that the moss is well padded down on the other side here. They're coming across this log and they're running along the edge of the water here. There's many different species of wildlife in this area. And you see the badgers regular sometimes in the evening, going along the river bank. Here we have another snare set here for the mink coming up the log. You can see scratches here in the side of the log. The animals have been jumping up to cover up putting the squirrels also. The shed here hanging under the log. The encourage the mink up to come up onto the log. There's also another one here. Catch them, and then the top is down here. As I say, these logs are very deadly locations for picking up mink on the river bank. As they run along these logs and go into these piles of quartz and all the fun. As I say, the snares are very efficient for picking them up. There's quite a number in the snares every season. Here we have an ideal location here for mink. A fuel drain running down here and a tunnel built over the top of it near the water's edge. These are ideal locations for mink. If the water's slightly deeper than the depth for a trap, just build it up with stones, cut yourself a piece of turf, turn it upside down, put it on top of the stones and bed your trap into the turf and lead your drowning wire out onto a stone. These locations are ideal for any mink that's running the bank. As mink being semi-aquatic, they like going into the water, but they also like keeping their feet dry. When they're running along the bank, investigating any of these locations, these drains and water grazing. Here we have a set made here at this bridge. These bridges are ideal locations for mink running the banks of the river. And when they come up along to the walls and the parapets of these bridges and investigate any holes and the stones and the workings of the bridge there, they can either go straight through if the water's not too rough, they'll go straight through under the bridge. Sometimes if the water's very rough, they'll go over the top, and it'll need to be very rough to make them go over the top. Here we have a small field drain here. I've built a tunnel over the top of it, and I was digging it out, a small channel, and it allowed the water to run back into the hole to place the trap under the water. We place the trap in here. front, allow the water to run back into the drain. When you angle it up at the back, you can put your bait up the back of the hole where it's dry, and the trap's placed in the water, and your grounding wire's led out here into the stream into a brick. So when the mink comes up, he comes in, he steps in the trap, he's caught, and he backs out and he's drowned in the stream. These locations are deadly on these small streams and rivers. This set we just made now, this is just a small wet seep on the bank of the stream, and we've dug it out into a channel here, and we've covered it with pieces of stick and branches, and then covered it with a piece of turf, and then leaves and other type of flotsam that you can line about the bank. A simple constructed set, nothing fancy, simple and very effective. That's away here. Oh, there it's here. God, that water's cold this morning. Female mink here. Yep. A good drain set that. That's the 6th mink that I've had out of that drain. Three locations here where you can trap the mink. Coming along the bank here, here's a drain here. On the bank here, this could be dug out. A tunnel could be made here to trap them. There's a good set here for a snare where the mink run along the bank. They like to keep their feet dry until the last moment before entering the water here, and that's a good location there for a snare. The American trappers, they would use a trap and put it in here at the parkway of the bridge, just at the wall of the bridge there. It's a term called blind setting. But in Britain, Our traps must be undercover, they must be under in a tunnel there, some sort of cover. And there's another location here is the mink. When they go up, they swim along the edge of the bridge, they hold tight to the wall, and they swim along the edges of the bridge here, and they come up, and there's a tunnel set there made with that stone at the end of the bridge here. The water's a bit deep at this corner here, but you can build that up with stones, and then cut a piece of tuff and turn it upside down, and put it on top of the stones and set your trap in there with your loose jaw tight to the wall and run onto a drowning wire, so that when the mink swims along the parapet of the bridge here, he gets caught in the trap and he drops off and he's drowned and out of sight. Here I've just finished digging a pocket set. This is a very effective and deadly set. This is one that's used with American longliners. You dig a hole at the end of the bank, and it tapers off into the water here. Green mink tracks here when they run along, and a mink will keep to the bank until the last possible moment before he enters the water. And this is where the pocket set becomes effective. Just dig in the hole, a good sized hole that you can see. And I just dig the hole at about 18 inches deep. I'll place the trap in the water there in the hole and run it out. Here's an ideal tree here for attaching your drowning wire. You set the trap in here, you put your bait on the shelf up in the back here so that it's visible for any mink that's passing for to look in and see it with a touchy lure, and he goes in and he steps on the trap, and the surface of the water is maybe about an inch deep over the trap. So when the mink comes along and he steps in the water, then the trap is sitting into the water, then he's caught. You must remember that a mink's got a short leg, he's only got a 3-inch leg, so therefore the less depth of water over the trap, the better. He gets more pressure with his feet, because you must remember a mink's very light and agile. Oh, there's a mink there, the trap's away. Big boy. That chap's been eating his porridge in the morning, eh? God, he's a big one. 4 pounds and more, that chap. That's brilliant. The trap here that you see is a fen trap, it's a Mark 6. These are the best traps of the whole lot. They're very strong springs. They've got a good sized kill area, but the only problem with the stepping area is very poor in comparison with the size of the kill area. A small, very small pan, and you've got about a 2-inch space here. A big dog mink. Powerful neck, very powerful. Cold. of the stair. We've got an unwelcome visitor. Like that. I don't like